Chloe and Liam were childhood sweethearts. Everyone thought they would be together from their school days, right up until the moment she walked down the aisle in her wedding dress. That was until Liam met Fiona, a rebellious, impulsive, and fiercely passionate girl. Because of her, he did all sorts of crazy things. He even planned to skip an important exam to run away with her to the Grand Canyon just so heaven and earth could witness their love. Worried that the two of them would get into danger, Chloe told Liam's parents about it. Afterward, he was sent away to a strict boarding school to focus on his studies, eventually graduating as the valedictorian of his high school. However, on the very day Fiona died in a tragic accident, he married Chloe. She thought their love had finally blossomed and borne fruit, but she never expected that day to mark the beginning of a lifelong tragedy. Welcome back. If you got a second chance, would you repeat a toxic romance or rebuild your life? Today, watch Chloe rewrite her destiny through sheer hard work. Let's dive in. When she opened her eyes again, she had returned to where it all began. Chloe, did you really think you could steal Liam away from me? So what if you two are childhood sweethearts? Haven't you heard that the girl next door can never beat the girl who falls right out of the sky? Fiona's sarcastic voice rang in her ears. The sunset dyed the alleyway red after school, casting mottled shadows on the ground. There was an indescribably unsettling feeling in the dim air. Chloe was cornered in the middle of the alley by Fiona and her gang of friends. Their eyes were full of contempt as they threatened her. The scene unfolding before her was both familiar and strange, but memories flooded her mind like a broken dam. Only then did she realize she had been reborn. In her previous life, Fiona had also cornered her here, warning her not to even dream of fighting over her man. The ruthless coldness of Liam, the arrogant provocation of Fiona, the tragic death of her parents, every single image flashed vividly in her mind. That suffocating, agonizing, and helpless feeling surged in her chest again, turning her whole body ice cold and making her tremble uncontrollably. She remembered very clearly that in her past life, it was exactly because she had told Liam's parents about their romance that he hated her for years. He blamed her entirely for Fiona's death, venting all his pain and resentment onto her. Her future was ruined, and she ultimately died a miserable death, even dragging her innocent family down with her. Seeing Chloe stay silent, Fiona assumed she was scared and let out a smug laugh. Do you think you're so great just because you're a bookworm? Let me tell you, Liam is mine. Stop dreaming. Don't go after someone who doesn't belong to you. Chloe took a deep breath, forcing herself to calm down. The disastrous ending of her previous life sliced through her heart like a blade. This time, she absolutely could not go down the same doomed path. She had to stay away from Liam, away from this walking disaster. I don't like Liam, she stated coldly, her tone full of absolute certainty. If you like him, then go ahead and chase him. Fiona didn't expect her to answer like that. She stood stunned for a few seconds before laughing in satisfaction. You better remember what you said today. If you dare to get near him again, I can't guarantee what I might do. After saying that, she led her friends away, leaving behind a trail of triumphant laughter. Chloe stood frozen in place, her legs turning to jelly, feeling as though she had just barely stepped back from the gates of hell. Once Fiona was gone, she leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. The memories of her past life slowly surfaced. After the two of them were forced to break up, Liam started focusing on his studies, and his relationship with Chloe gradually softened. Later on, he even confessed his feelings and proposed to her. On the outside, he was so gentle and sincere that everyone thought their marriage was built on true love. But as time went on, his true colors were slowly revealed. There was no longer a trace of gentleness in his eyes, only coldness and sheer malice. It's all your fault. If you hadn't been a snitch, Fiona and I could have been together properly. I could have protected her, and she wouldn't have died. You ruined everything. His cruelty terrified her to the point of absolute despair. She had tried to escape countless times, but she failed every single time. Finally, one night, he pressed a pillow tightly over her face, coldly watching her struggle until she suffocated to death. In this life, she hoped the two of them would die together. She pretended to leave, her footsteps light but her heart as cold as ice. At the turn of the alley, she quietly hid in the shadows, holding her breath to observe what was happening inside. Not long after, Liam appeared. His handsome face looked a bit blurred in the evening light, but she immediately recognized his silhouette. He walked toward Fiona. The two stood very close to each other, acting incredibly intimate. Fiona wrapped her arms around his neck, smiling and whispering as they talked. Chloe's heart suddenly grew heavy, as if struck by something hard. The painful memories of her past life flooded back. Liam's betrayal and torment still haunted her, impossible to erase. Fiona's hand slowly stroked down his spine. Their movements grew increasingly suggestive, completely disregarding the fact that they were in a public place. Watching that scene, she only felt nauseous, her hands unconsciously clenching into fists. Liam, doesn't your heart ache? Fiona leaned against him, her tone both coquettish and teasing. After all, Chloe is your childhood sweetheart. Liam chuckled softly, lowering his head to kiss her forehead. His voice was cold yet firm. As long as you're happy, that's all that matters. I only care about you. Hearing those words, Chloe just wanted to let out a cold laugh. It turned out that the gentleness and care she had once thought made her special to him were nothing more than things he could discard at any moment. Her chest twinged with pain again. She suppressed her emotions, quietly turned around, and left. She couldn't let them find out she was there. She had to stay away from these two lunatics and not get involved in the slightest. Upon returning home, she poured all her energy into studying and preparing for her exams. Every day, she buried herself in solving practice tests and researching materials, barely giving herself a moment to rest. But no matter how hard she tried to avoid them, she couldn't escape running into them again. Once, by chance, she caught Liam and Fiona in the school hallway. Fiona was leaning against the wall, while Liam had his head bowed close to hers, as if discussing something highly secretive. She was about to turn away when she overheard their conversation. "Why don't we go to the Grand Canyon? Let's go so heaven and earth can witness our love." Fiona's voice was full of anticipation and dreaminess. Liam nodded. "Okay, but we have to keep it a secret. No one can know, especially Chloe. She loves to snitch." Hearing that, Chloe only felt disgusted, almost laughing out loud in contempt. She began to wonder what was wrong with her in her past life, to have liked him for so many years. She was truly foolish beyond repair. Unexpectedly, when she went home that evening, she caught Liam secretly buying travel gear. As soon as he saw her, his expression changed instantly. He warned her in a cold voice, "Chloe, don't talk nonsense. You are not allowed to breathe a word of this to anyone." Looking at his rebellious appearance, his hair dyed in a multitude of colors, his hands adorned with flashy rings, she only felt intensely repulsed. "I don't have the time to care about your business," she sneered, then turned and walked away. Liam's face instantly darkened, but she couldn't be bothered to care. Seeing the two of them acting so affectionate, she only found it laughable. Their so-called power of love was nothing more than an excuse to use each other. After deciding to ruin his life with Fiona, Liam practically stuck to her all day long. The two were inseparable wherever they went, showing absolutely no regard for the eyes around them, as if they were the only ones left in the world. Studying no longer seemed important to them. Liam even threw away numerous opportunities to compete in academic tournaments. Chloe stood on the sidelines, coldly observing. If he didn't want those opportunities, then she would take them. Along with a few friends who shared the same goals, she buried herself in the classroom every day, solving practice exams. She reviewed for exams, prepared for honor student competitions, and went from taking mock tests to discussing exam papers. With her study schedule packed from morning to night, Chloe poured her entire mind into her studies, completely ignoring Liam and Fiona's affairs. That was until one day, their relationship was caught red-handed by Liam's father. That day, Chloe and her friends were heading to the library when they heard a loud, noisy argument echoing from the school gates. "What the hell are you doing?" An angry shout shattered the quiet atmosphere of the schoolyard. She looked over and saw Liam's father standing at the gate, his face flushed red with anger. Liam stood opposite him, both hands clenched into tight fists. "Look at yourself now." He pointed straight at his son, his voice full of disappointment. "Hanging around that street trash every day, neglecting your studies. Do you even deserve your parents' expectations anymore?" Liam remained silent, but his clenched fists showed he was trying hard to suppress his anger. Fiona, standing nearby, looked momentarily panicked but quickly regained her composure. She stepped forward and tried to pull Liam's hand. "Liam, let's go." "Stop right there," Liam's father roared. "You two have made such a mess that the whole school knows, and parents have been called in." Just as Chloe and her classmates walked by, Liam's father suddenly looked toward her. In his eyes there was a mix of disappointment and anger. "Look at Chloe. She has good grades, works hard, and makes progress. Why can't you learn from her?" Liam's eyes instantly turned dark. He stared at her as if he wanted to pierce a hole right through her. Chloe knew right away that he suspected her of snitching. "Chloe," he asked coldly, "was it you who told my dad?" She sneered, not backing down in the slightest. "Are you crazy? Don't be like a rabid dog biting anyone you see. Do you think I have that much free time to care about your scandalous affairs?" Right at that moment, the homeroom teacher rushed over to explain. "Liam, you misunderstood Chloe. This time, it's because a video of you and Fiona has been spreading around the school. The negative impact was too great, so the school had to call your parents." Liam's face grew even uglier. His hands clenched so tightly that his veins popped. clearly trying to control his rage. Chloe didn't want to stay entangled, so she turned to the homeroom teacher. "Sir, I have things to do. May I be excused?" Seeing this, Fiona let out a faint smirk, intentionally mocking her. "Chloe, you really are good at pretending to be so high and mighty." Chloe turned her head, gave her a glance, and replied coldly, "We're about the same." Even though Liam loved Fiona, to the point of risking everything, his parents, from beginning to end, never accepted this relationship. In their eyes, Fiona was simply destroying their son's future. Liam stood in front of his parents and shouted angrily, "From childhood until now, you two have only seen me as a studying machine. Only Fiona truly loves me. If you don't agree to let us be together, I'll die to show you." Liam's mother turned pale, a look of panic flashing in her eyes. She had never seen her son act so extreme before. Even his father was momentarily speechless, not knowing how to handle the situation. Ultimately, Liam's parents had to yield. They agreed to let him date Fiona, but strictly demanded that it absolutely must not affect his studies. Liam nodded, a victorious smile appearing at the corner of his lips. Not long after this incident settled down, Liam's mother secretly came to meet Chloe. She looked at her with a complex expression, her voice full of pleading. "Chloe, could you help me talk some sense into Liam? You've liked him since you were little, and our family has always seen you as our future daughter-in-law." Chloe felt both awkward and frustrated, but she politely and gently withdrew her hand from the older woman's grasp. "Auntie, you've misunderstood. I only see him as a neighbor, nothing more." She let out a sigh, her eyes filled with helplessness and disappointment. Chloe suddenly remembered her past life. After Liam became successful, his mother began finding her more and more of an eyesore. Believing that Chloe was dragging her son down and was no longer worthy of him, she would frequently drop hints, telling Liam to divorce her and find someone of a more equal social standing. When Chloe died, a tragic death in her past life, his mother even seemed relieved of a burden, continuing to busy herself with finding a wealthy daughter-in-law for her son. They had been neighbors for so many years, yet when Chloe's parents passed away, Liam's family didn't show a single ounce of grief. They didn't even attend the funeral. Thinking of this, her heart was filled with nothing but coldness and resolve. After that incident, Liam and Fiona began to date openly, without any reservations. It was as if they were afraid the world wouldn't know how deeply in love they were. Every day, they walked hand in hand to get water, eat lunch, and go to class, showing off their affection at every turn. They wore matching couple outfits, and Fiona was always leaning closely against Liam, hugging him and clinging to him constantly, making the surrounding students so embarrassed that it was uncomfortable. Even though Liam was completely immersed in his romance, his academic foundation was so solid that his grades remained very stable. They didn't plummet as the teachers had feared, and he still firmly held his position as the #1 student in the grade. Seeing this, Fiona became even more smug. She even publicly mocked hardworking students like Chloe and her friends. "What's the point of you guys studying so hard? You're still no match for my boyfriend." Tracy's face turned red with anger, and she immediately wanted to argue back on Chloe's behalf. "Chloe, don't pay attention to her. She's just jealous of you." Chloe smiled and pulled her down to sit. "It's okay. What she said isn't wrong. Liam really is that good." But only Chloe knew that Liam's advantage was gradually shrinking. With every exam, her scores showed clear improvement, while his began to stagnate. There were even a few times when he scored only slightly higher than her. So what if he was a genius? If he continued to neglect his studies and had a twisted mindset, he would sooner or later destroy himself. She continued to bury herself in her studies, pouring all her energy into moving forward. Every time she saw Liam and Fiona together, her heart no longer felt a single ripple of emotion. On the contrary, she found them increasingly ridiculous. They would laugh and play out on the sports field, while she diligently worked on assignments in the classroom. They would be affectionate in the cafeteria, while she stubbornly sat in the library, reviewing practice exams. Every time she saw their intimate displays, only one thought crossed her mind. She had to rely on herself to forge her own path. One afternoon, Fiona once again publicly mocked everyone. She held her head high, her voice full of arrogance. "A bunch of losers. What's the point of trying? In the face of pure talent, hard work isn't even worth mentioning." Tracy was so furious that she sprang up to retort, but Chloe gently held her back. "Don't get angry. It's not worth it." Chloe gave a faint smile, her eyes turning slightly cold. Only she knew that if Liam kept going like this, sooner or later, he would have to pay the price for his choices. And while they continued to drown in their so-called love, she steadily moved closer to her own goals. With every exam and every academic competition, she improved bit by bit, getting closer and closer to her dream. The halo of a genius would eventually fade, but hard work and perseverance were the only things that could truly take a person far. The day of the competition arrived quickly. Early in the morning, the entire team gathered in front of the school gate to board the bus to the competition venue. Everyone was both nervous and excited. But just as they were about to get on the bus, Chloe spotted an uninvited guest. Fiona showed up too. She linked her arm through Liam's, her face full of smugness, as if this trip was their own private world. "Oh, Chloe." She greeted her with a squinty-eyed smile. "Didn't expect this, did you?" "I'm going too." Chloe forced down the disgust welling up inside her and replied coldly, "Suit yourself." After getting on the bus, Fiona and Liam sat in the row right behind them. The two of them whispered one moment and giggled the next, making all sorts of inappropriately intimate noises as if they had completely forgotten there were other people on the bus. The surrounding classmates were all bothered by it but were too hesitant to speak up. Chloe acted as if she hadn't heard them, lowering her head to continue flipping through her dog-eared study notes, trying to focus her mind so as not to be affected by them. After a bumpy ride, the bus finally arrived at the competition venue. Everyone got off one by one, their faces tense as they prepared to enter the exam room. Inside, the atmosphere was suffocatingly high pressure. Everyone was taking advantage of the last moments to prepare before the test began. She sat down at her assigned seat, took a deep breath, and began to work on the exam with intense focus. She thought very carefully about each question, trying to answer as perfectly as possible. In her previous life, she originally also had the chance to be admitted directly to college based on her competition results. But after she snitched, Liam had constantly and publicly humiliated her at school. His harsh words had caused her to break down completely. She cried endlessly. Her mental state became a mess, and her exam results fluctuated wildly. She didn't even do well on the final college entrance exam. That period was practically the darkest time of her life. When she put down her pen for the final time, she walked out of the exam room feeling immensely relieved. But as soon as she looked up, she saw Liam. His expression was very heavy, as if something was weighing on his mind. Everyone around them was excitedly comparing answers, but he alone was acting out of the ordinary. "Chloe?" Liam suddenly walked over, lowering his voice. "I have something I want to say to you. Can we step outside for a bit?" She hesitated for a few seconds, but nodded anyway, following him to a relatively quiet corner. "What is it?" she asked coldly. Liam looked at her, his eyes full of complex emotions. "In my past life, I was too impulsive. I did a lot of wrong things." Chloe froze instantly. He also remembered their past life? Could it be that he was reborn too? This time, his voice deepened as he continued. "Can we just let each other go? Everything that happened before was my idea alone. It had nothing to do with Fiona." In her heart, she only found it laughable. "The thing I regret most about my past life," she said, looking straight at him, "is that I ever liked you." Liam's face instantly darkened, as if her words had stabbed him right in the heart. She continued, her tone incredibly resolute. "I'll say it one more time. I have absolutely no interest in either of you. I just want to live my life well. I hope the two of you stop showing up to bother me." Right at that moment, Fiona suddenly lunged forward. Her eyes looked like they were on fire with rage. "Chloe, you still dare to seduce my boyfriend?" Her voice was shrill and ear-piercing. Chloe looked at her with utter disgust. "I didn't seduce him. He came looking for me himself." But Fiona clearly didn't believe it. She raised her hand to slap her, but Chloe reacted incredibly fast, slapping her right back without hesitation. Smack! The sound of the slap rang out crisp and clear in the air. Fiona stood rooted to the spot, clutching her face, her eyes filled with disbelief. Seeing this, Liam immediately flew into a rage, pulling Fiona behind him. "Chloe, you've gone too far." She looked at him coldly, then, without a moment of hesitation, landed another slap right on his face. "You too," she scolded coldly. "If you two want to be crazy in love, go rent a room and do it yourselves. Stop polluting other people's eyes all day long." Fiona was so mad she was going crazy, struggling and trying to lunge forward to hit her. But the moment Chloe glared at her coldly, she instantly faltered and stepped back. A pathetic guy and a cheap girl, truly a match made in heaven. Chloe enunciated each word with deep disgust. "Don't ever appear in front of me again." After saying that, she turned around and walked away without any hesitation. The news of her hitting someone outside of school quickly reached her parents' ears. She thought they would scold her, but surprisingly, both of them were only filled with worry and heartache. "Chloe," her mother said gently, "Liam isn't right for you. I'm afraid that if you keep getting entangled with him, the one who suffers in the end will still be you." Her father also furrowed his brows tightly, his eyes full of unease and anxiety. Chloe took a deep breath, an indescribable bitterness welling up in her heart. "Mom, Dad, I know you two are worried about me," she said firmly. But I really don't like Liam anymore, she said. The past is the past, and now is now. The only thing I want right now is to get into college and have a bright future. Her mother gently sighed and took her hand, her eyes filled with affection. Mom and Dad know you've liked him for so many years, and we know you've suffered a lot of grievances. Her father gently patted her shoulder. As long as you think your choice is right, Mom and Dad will always support you. Hearing those words, Chloe finally couldn't hold back her tears. Her parents' love and understanding warmed her heart to the point of suffocation. Her mother smiled and continued, "Since the exams are over anyway, why don't our family go on a trip for a few days to relax?" But with red-rimmed eyes, Chloe thought back to her past life. Back then, her parents had loved her just as much. They had advised her many times that Liam's intentions weren't as simple as she thought, but at that time she was blindly in love and completely refused to listen to them. In the end, she died a miserable death, and her parents, overwhelmed with grief, met with tragedy, one after another. Her mother suffered a heart attack and passed away, and her father, in a state of emotional panic, died in a car accident. Thinking of that, her heart ached with regret so intense she could barely breathe. In this life, she absolutely had to cherish her parents' love and never let them break their hearts over her again. "Yes," she choked out, her eyes filled with gratitude and determination. Her parents smiled and hugged her tightly. This time, she would not let the tragedy repeat itself. She would study hard and give herself and her parents a bright future. Not long after, the competition results were announced, and she successfully secured a direct admission spot. At that moment, it felt as though the heavy stone weighing down on her heart had finally been lifted, and her whole body felt immensely relieved. Meanwhile, Liam missed out on direct admission. His 3 years of effort had essentially gone down the drain, and he could only take the regular college entrance exam like everyone else. The halo and arrogance surrounding him began to gradually fade, losing their former brilliance. As for her, she decided never to return to school again, staying home instead to focus on preparing for college life. She enjoyed that rare, brief period of rest while planning for her future. Even though she stayed away from school drama, she still occasionally heard rumors about Liam and Fiona. One day, Tracy ran over to find her with an expression of utter astonishment. "Chloe, did you know? To maintain his rank as the top student, Liam actually cheated on his exams. I thought he was genuinely smart and could stay at the top without studying, but who would have thought he'd resort to such underhanded tactics?" Hearing this, Chloe just gave a faint smile and said nothing more. Liam had once been a true academic prodigy, but now, driven by vanity, he had pushed himself down a road of no return. In subsequent mock exams, although his scores still ranked near the top, his luster was entirely gone compared to before. Following the national college entrance exams, she was smoothly admitted directly to a top-tier university. The announcement of Liam's exam results shocked everyone. He failed to make the cut and ended up attending an ordinary college. Compared to his past glorious achievements, that outcome was blindingly disappointing and tragic. The whole school buzzed with chatter. Whenever they talked about early romance negatively impacting studies, the teachers used Liam as a negative example. Look at Liam, who used to be the school's pride. He neglected his studies just because of a relationship and ended up at a mediocre college. The teachers sighed and lamented like that to serve as a warning to the students. As for Fiona, whose academic performance was already poor to begin with, she could only manage to get into a community college. Looking at all of this, Chloe's heart didn't stir with a single ripple. This wasn't fate. Everyone simply had to pay the price for their own choices. Her college life was busy, but exceptionally fulfilling and meaningful. Even before officially starting classes, she was already accepted into her advisor's research project. Outside of class, she participated in all sorts of competitions, constantly winning awards. In the field of academic research, she also gradually made new breakthroughs, smoothly transitioning directly into a master's program and beginning to prepare her PhD application. In college, she gradually became a standout figure. Every time she stood on stage to receive an award, looking at the admiring gazes of the people below, she felt an indescribable surge of emotion. Perhaps because of her striking appearance, she had no shortage of suitors, but she rejected them all. Love was no longer important to her now. Her future career and academic research, those were the things she truly wanted in this life. Occasionally, she would still hear some news about Liam and Fiona. In this lifetime, their relationship was nowhere near as enduring as the solemn vows they had once made. Liam attended an ordinary university, while Fiona went to a community college in the same city. At first, the two were still very intimate, posting couple photos on social media all day long. But less than a year later, Fiona started to get bored of Liam and got entangled with a notorious playboy upperclassman at her school. After entering college, Liam's halo had gradually faded. He was no longer the genius everyone paid attention to. His family grew increasingly dissatisfied with him, constantly berating him for failing to get into a top-tier university and making them lose face. That pressure gradually accumulated, becoming the fuse for the conflicts between him and Fiona. One blamed the other for no longer having that halo, saying he was no longer someone she could be proud to show off. The other resented her, blaming his blind love for her that year for destroying his future. They argued more and more, and their relationship grew increasingly strained. Finally, after less than a year, the two officially broke up. Rumor had it that their breakup was an incredibly ugly scene. Fiona publicly exposed all of Liam's flaws in front of everyone, and Liam didn't hold back either, cursing her out for being a vain gold digger. Those ugly stories spread all over their circle of friends, making anyone who heard them just sigh. As for Chloe, after hearing all this, she only felt relieved. That was their choice, and they had to bear the consequences themselves. It had absolutely nothing to do with her anymore. She quickly shifted her attention back to her own life and future. Her life had already turned to a new chapter. She would continue to move forward, pursuing her own dreams and goals. One night, having some free time, she sat down to clean up her phone, deleting old messages and unused apps. While scrolling through her inbox, she suddenly stopped at a message from an unknown number. It had been sent 2 or 3 months ago, and the content was very short. "Are you doing okay?" Looking at those words, her heart slightly wavered. Even though it was an unknown number, she could almost instantly guess who the sender was. Liam's belated greeting no longer held any meaning for her now. She casually deleted the message, tossing it into the trash, thoroughly cutting off all contact. That night, she slept very well. Waking up the next morning, with the sunlight piercing through the curtains and falling onto the head of her bed, she felt an unprecedented sense of warmth and relief. The new spring of her life had finally truly begun. The future was still in her own hands. She finally had a rare opportunity to return to her hometown for the holidays. That day, while taking a walk on the street, she accidentally bumped into Liam's mother. Completely different from her luxurious and glamorous appearance in her previous life, this time, the older woman looked much more haggard. She wore simple clothes, and her complexion had dulled considerably. It was obvious that she had been agonizing over Liam for a long time. As soon as she saw Chloe, she immediately put on a flattering smile and quickly walked over. "Chloe, it's been so long." Chloe nodded politely. "Yes, it's been a long time, Auntie. I heard you're doing incredibly well now, graduating with a PhD, and even being retained by the university to teach. You really have a bright future." Chloe smiled and replied, "Thank you, Auntie. This is all just the result of years of hard work." She hesitated for a few seconds before cautiously opening up. "Actually, Auntie has a favor to ask of you. Liam also wants to take the graduate entrance exam now, into your university. He studies very hard, it's just that there are a few areas where he needs someone to guide him. Could you see if you can spare a little time to help him? After all, you two grew up together since you were little. Before you even..." Chloe let out a cold laugh in her heart and directly cut her off. "I'm sorry, Auntie, but I'll be going abroad soon with my professor for an academic exchange. I really don't have the time. Besides, Liam's academic abilities have always been excellent. In the past, he used to leave me in the dust on every exam. If he really needs it, he can find a test prep center." Hearing her say that, Liam's mother's face instantly turned ugly, but she still forced a smile. Right at that moment, Liam also walked over. She had to admit, God truly favored him. That face was still as strikingly handsome as before, just without the dazzling arrogance of the past. Now, he looked tired and empty, like a wandering traveler who had lost his way. He stood next to his mother, his eyes full of complex emotions, as if he had so much he wanted to say but ultimately couldn't speak. Chloe just nodded politely. "Long time no see?" He slightly pursed his lips and, after a long time, replied in a low voice, "Yeah, long time no see, Chloe." She didn't say anything more. After saying goodbye, she turned and left. Her life continued to move forward, her future still radiant and full of hope. As for whether Liam's life was good or bad, it had absolutely nothing to do with her anymore. After graduating with her PhD, she chose to stay at the university to teach. She taught classes during the day and continued her scientific research at night. In just a few short years, she had become a prominent figure in the academic community. She was no longer anyone's wife, nor anyone's lover. She was simply herself. During a class reunion, Tracy pulled her into a corner and said mysteriously, "Chloe, did you know? Liam is taking the graduate entrance exam for your university." She sighed and continued, "He took it twice just to pass the written round, but he gets eliminated every time he reaches the interview stage. He tested for 5 whole years and still ended up with nothing." Tracy lamented. "Who would have thought? The genius of our school back then would end up like this." Hearing this, Chloe only felt a sense of irony in her heart. He brought this upon himself. She said coldly, "There's nothing to pity. He chose that path himself, so he has to pay the price. To be given a second chance at life and still manage to ruin it all over again, it's truly ridiculous." Not long after, Liam actually came all the way to her university to see her. He stood before her, his face full of regret and exhaustion. "Chloe, I know I was wrong. Can you give me one more chance?" His voice was filled with pleading. "I truly regret it. I should have listened to you back then and stayed away from Fiona. Can we start over from the beginning? But after everything that happened, I finally realized that the person I truly love has always been you. In our past life, I wronged you. Please give me a chance to make it up to you." She looked at him, feeling absolutely no emotion in her heart other than coldness. "Liam," she said calmly, "your chances ran out a long time ago. Don't ever show up to bother my life again." He hastily said, "Chloe," but she directly cut him off. "Start over? Do you think you're worthy? Liam, it's not that you truly realized you love me. It's just that your halo has disappeared now. In this life, you can't succeed on your own anymore, so you need my help, that's all. If you were still as successful as in your past life, would you even remember that a Chloe existed in this world? Would you bow your head and beg me?" He stood dead in his tracks. The genuine shame and helplessness of having his heart exposed by her words were clearly written on his face. She didn't give him any more chances. Before he could even open his mouth, she called the security guards to escort him out. As for Fiona, her ending was no better either. In her past life, after breaking up with Liam, she practically never had a single moment of being single. She spent all her time diving headfirst into romances, completely neglecting her studies. In the end, she married an older man who had some money. However, it was never in her nature to settle down, and she continued to secretly mess around with other men. Eventually, that man couldn't take it anymore and stabbed her to death right on the street. In this lifetime, she still couldn't change her ways. She married and divorced continuously, and was now working in a shady profession, sinking deeper and deeper into a mire from which she could never escape. The couple that was once hailed as a destined true love all those years ago had ultimately become the biggest joke. As for Chloe, she finally got to live the brilliant, radiant life that was always meant to belong to her.
Talent fades without discipline. Chloe's journey proves that your best investment is yourself. Never sacrifice your future for a toxic relationship. Share your thoughts below, like, and subscribe.